In Scripture, we know that Saint Joseph plays a prominent role. We hear about him, we know about him before the birth of Jesus, during the Nativity story, fleeing to Egypt, and finding Jesus in the temple. And though his role is so prominent, he does not utter a word, and after those early gospel passages, we don't know much about the details of Joseph's later life. What we know is that Joseph leads a life of quiet service to God, a life that's unknown, but a life of humility. Since we can't read too much about his life, we can learn about him through Jesus, especially since we know that Mary and Joseph were the primary educators for Jesus. Jesus is often described in Scripture as the carpenter's son. We can imagine that Joseph taught Jesus about his faith, how to pray, how to have a good relationship with God, and follow the traditions of the Jewish faith. I'm sure he also taught him about carpentry, taught him those values, about being patient, about judgment, making sure everything is leveled and in sync. Honesty, how would they charge a fair price for whatever they were selling? Persistence, right? If something doesn't work right or doesn't fit exactly, how can you continue to keep molding it and working it till it does? And creativity. Jesus and Joseph, through carpentry, built and contributed to the common good of the town that they lived in. And one phrase that stays with me about St. Joseph is humble worker. It embodies somebody who lives simply, quietly, who's dependable and present to others in their everyday life. During this COVID pandemic, I think there was a lot of reflection on humble workers. And for me, really, it's been the grocery worker. When I went out and I was able to get my items of food, I'd see they were stocking shelves, the cashiers were smiling, and even the deli counter man who apologized for my long wait. And everyone was joyful, laughing. And I often marveled at that in the midst of my fear, in the midst of going out, how they were able to be present for us. The spirit of Joseph is alive in all of them. But one person in particular in my life that I think of is aptly named Joseph. Joseph is a man from my parish, St. Martha's. And I can't really say for sure how I met Joseph. I just kind of remember he was always there. He was a man who attended 7:30 Mass on Sundays and daily Mass before walking across the street to work at 7-Eleven. Joseph is an immigrant from Sri Lanka who came to this country on Christmas Day in 1984. He came and settled where his brother and mother were in Florida, and soon after his mother died, he moved to New York because he says it was too rural for him at the time. He liked the urban city areas more. He moved to Brooklyn, and a few years later, he moved to Uniondale after a friend bought a house and he lived there. That's when he started working at 7-Eleven. And he worked there for 30 years until he retired. Sometimes he would work 6-7 days a week, working 10 to 12-hour shifts. And even in that time, he worked in a soup kitchen in East Harlem that was run by the Missionaries of Charity, the congregation that St. Teresa of Calcutta founded. His sister would often fix curtains and help around, and he would clean the floors, and he would spend the day serving others. He even got to meet his inspiration, St. Teresa, one day when she arrived there. Now, whenever my mother was at Mass or at church, and my brother and I managed to sneak away, we tried to cross the street. We would often cross the street to get a snack. And usually we would buy like a favorite snack or Slurpee, and we would see that Joseph was always there, either working, stocking items, as a cashier, and he always greeted us warmly, making sure that the people from the church were taken care of. And he often made everyone feel important. It didn't matter where we came from. Besides always working, I always remember that Joseph always had a smile, and he was always generous with everyone. And to me, I know that that transcended to everybody that met Joseph. Countless times in our parish, when there was an emergency or the coffee pots didn't work, someone would run over to 7-Eleven and Joseph would quickly come, 2 hands filled with coffee pots, bringing what was necessary. And he would do that several times. Besides helping with the coffee, Joseph always helped the social ministry office. He would often be the person that worked behind the scenes, assisting without it being well known. And he did this creatively. He would often allow the social ministry office to store their turkeys for Christmas and Thanksgiving in the freezers at 7-Eleven. He would often help the people who visited the social ministry office. They would stop by in the 7-Eleven to purchase food, and he would make sure he would give them discounts or he would cut coupons for them, and he treated everyone with dignity and respect. He was also the first to donate, and he also encouraged others to donate. There is a story that social ministry office requested cereal. They ran out of cereal for the children. So when that request went out, he got together with his co-workers and customers and began a collection at 7-Eleven. He would often say to them as they were purchasing their products, "Do you want to donate? Do you mind giving some extra money for cereal for the children?" One customer, he said to him, "I don't donate to anybody or anything, but for you, Joseph, here's $5. He was able to raise $104, and with the coupons and discounts, he bought 100 boxes of cereal for the children of the parish. And though I know Joseph won't admit it, I know that with his generosity, he often used his own money to pay for whatever was necessary. He often just says the district managers were very good, and I'm sure that was the case, but I know a lot of it was because of Joseph. And that reminds me of the scripture passage from the Gospel of Matthew, where it says, "But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that alms may be done in secret." And another line or another phrase, "hidden from the world, but visible to God." And truly, the good that Joseph has done is often hidden from the world and only visible to God. Joseph is now retired, but he continues his good works. He sends back money to Sri Lanka, where he's able to support 3 families. These families didn't have anything to eat, but now through this help, the children of those families are receiving an education. And honestly, I know that this has been a practice of his ever since he came to the United States. He has lived simply so that he may continue to help those in need. I can honestly say that these are probably just a few examples that I know of how Joseph has contributed and worked hard behind the scenes, and how he creates a community of concern. He does and continues to do what is necessary for others without thinking of himself. He's taught me how to live simply, joyfully, serving God and neighbor without distinction. In his everyday actions and in the mundaneness of life, Joseph is a role model for many. He uses his gifts, talents, and resources creatively to respond to the needs of others and to the call that God gives on a daily basis. Joseph becomes an instrument for God's presence in the world, very much like St. Joseph. I can honestly say that Joseph has impacted the lives of the people in our local community, but I know that he has touched and changed the lives of so many more people that I will never know. And from the prayer of the founding documents of the Sisters of St. Joseph, it says that we should have eyes open, ears attentive, spirit alert and generous, sleeves rolled up without excluding anyone. This description fits my friend Joseph also, and this can be seen by his prayerful presence and action. And so in reflecting on this, I've reflected on a few questions in this year of St. Joseph. Who is someone who exemplifies the qualities of St. Joseph, the humble worker, in my life? What can I learn from them? how can I emulate St. Joseph in his quiet, generous ways in my everyday life? And wherever you are now, right now, how can you have eyes open, ears attentive, spirit alert, and sleeves rolled up to those you encounter, whether it be in person, virtually, or in whichever way you can reach out to others?